Chapter 1. The Beast Within. An Ancient Fear. Throughout every age, beneath the calm veneer of civilization, a shadow has lingered. The belief that man can become beast. The werewolf, part human, part wolf, has haunted folklore for thousands of years. But where did this fear begin? Long before the Middle Ages carved them into demonic hunters under moonlight, the idea of shapeshifting was sacred. Ancient shamans in Europe and Siberia wore wolf pelts in ritual. In the oldest Norse myths, warriors called Ulfhednar entered battle in a trance-like state, channeling the power of the wolf to become unstoppable. Were they metaphorical berserkers or literal shapeshifters whose traditions our rational age has buried? In ancient Greece, the myth of King Lycaon, who was punished by Zeus for serving human flesh and transformed into a wolf, marked one of the earliest written records of lycanthropy. But such tales weren't isolated. Cultures from Mesopotamia to the Navajo told of men who walked between worlds, sometimes protectors, sometimes predators. Is the werewolf a fear of nature's savagery within us? A suppressed memory of ancient rites? Or a buried truth we've dressed in myth to keep from believing? Some modern researchers suggest the persistence of the werewolf archetype reveals something deep and unresolved in the human psyche, a primal duality, a spiritual fracture, or even an ancient genetic legacy. This isn't just a story of monsters. It's the story of a truth we've tried to forget. Chapter 2. Medieval Moonlight. The Rise of the Wolf Trials. As Europe descended into the superstitions of the Middle Ages, the werewolf evolved, no longer a spiritual warrior or cautionary myth, but a creature of the devil. The Church, battling to impose moral order, declared war on shapeshifters, casting them as witches' familiars or demonic hybrids. Fear wasn't just imagined, it was institutionalized. In France and Germany between the 15th and 17th centuries, hundreds were tried and executed not for being wolves, but for becoming them. These weren't isolated events. Entire regions fell into hysteria. In 1521, two Frenchmen, Pierre Bourgault and Michel Verdun, confessed under torture to making a pact with the devil, transforming into wolves and killing children. Their confessions read like twisted theater, yet their executions were real. The werewolf trials mirrored the infamous witch hunts. But while witches were accused of wielding power, werewolves were accused of losing control, surrendering to base instincts, bloodlust, and animal rage. Scholars believe these accusations reflected deeper fears about madness, the collapse of social norms, and the blurring of human identity. Still, the details raised chilling questions. Witnesses spoke of transformations during full moons, of victims found torn apart in rural forests, of claw marks on locked doors. In some cases, the accused showed strange scars, unnaturally heightened senses, or claimed to have blacked out during the attacks. Were they mentally ill, victims of ergot poisoning, or was something older at work, a remnant of the wolf cults, distorted by time and persecution? Whatever the truth, the wolf trials left behind a trail of blood, mystery, and silence. Chapter 3. Of Blood and Bone. Werewolves in medical history. Not all werewolves were burned. Some were studied. As the Enlightenment dawned in the 17th and 18th centuries, the wolfman became less of a religious heretic and more of a medical anomaly. Physicians and philosophers began cataloging strange conditions that mirrored the folklore. Human beings who believed they had become wolves, or whose bodies bore uncanny, animalistic traits. One such condition was lycanthropy, not the transformation itself, but the delusion of transformation. Patients barked, howled, crawled on all fours, and attacked livestock or people, convinced they were beasts. The term became an official psychiatric diagnosis, one still referenced in modern clinical texts under rare dissociative and psychotic disorders. Then there was hypertrichosis, a rare genetic disorder that causes excessive hair growth across the body and face. Individuals with this condition were often misunderstood, displayed in circuses, or feared as monsters. In medieval and early modern Europe, some were accused of being literal werewolves. Other explanations surfaced. Rabies, with its aggression, foaming mouth, and fear of water, was linked to the werewolf myth in 19th century medical literature. Hallucinogenic poisoning from ergot-infested rye bread causing spasms, paranoia, and delirium may have contributed to outbreaks of werewolf panic. And yet, not all cases fit. Some werewolves claim no delusion. They did not howl. They had no genetic disorders. Some were intelligent, composed, and genuinely believed their transformations were physical. In one 1720 Bavarian account, a man claimed he could feel his bones breaking and reshaping during full moons. When arrested, he offered no resistance, only a warning. "I become what the forest remembers." Medicine tried to explain the beast, but some stories stubbornly refused to fit the diagnosis. Chapter 4. Skin and Spell. Werewolves and Witchcraft. To the medieval imagination, the boundary between werewolves and witches was porous. One did not always transform through curse or birthright, but through ritual. Old trial records and esoteric grimoires speak of transformation ointments, lunar incantations, and cursed belts made from wolf hide. In 1589, Peter Stump of Germany, dubbed the Werewolf of Bedburg, confessed under torture to using a magical girdle that gave him wolf form. He was executed gruesomely, his legend echoing through Europe. The church believed witches could summon storms, fly at night, and shift into beasts. In some regions of France and Italy, those accused of lycanthropy were also charged with witchcraft. Their homes were searched for wolf, fur, bones, and strange herbs, aconite, also called wolfsbane, among them. Alchemical texts from the 1400s describe recipes for unguenta lupina, salves meant to induce transformation. Ingredients included bat blood, graveyard dirt, and hallucinogenic plants. Were these metaphors for altered states, or actual attempts to harness something older and darker? In the Basque Country, records from the Inquisition tell of forest cults who performed full moon ceremonies, invoking animal spirits. These were not just wolves. They were loup-garous, beings between worlds, guardians and punishers. Some folklorists argue these rites were misunderstood nature worship. Others suggest they were cover for something more, a secret knowledge passed through generations. The line between spell and science was thin, and the price of crossing it was often death. As the fire of the witch hunts burned across Europe, so too did the fear that transformation wasn't a myth, but a choice. Chapter 5. The Wolf Pact. Werewolves and the Devil. In the grim folklore of early modern Europe, not all werewolves were cursed. Some were chosen. Stories spread of men who entered pacts with the devil to gain strength, speed, and the ability to become wolves at will. In return, they served infernal purposes, spreading fear, violence, and heresy under the cover of night. The church believed the devil offered such pacts through familiars or forest spirits, marking the flesh with the so-called witch's teat. It was said a werewolf's bite could transfer both curse and loyalty. According to 16th century trial records from Livonia, accused werewolves described nighttime convocations where Satan himself distributed wolf pelts and potions in exchange for servitude. These gatherings, part rite, part orgy, part rebellion, were whispered to occur in deep woods on All Hallows' Eve. In 1591, German tailor Peter Stump claimed that the devil gave him a magical belt, allowing him to take wolf form and feast on villagers. He was executed after a confession that reads like something torn from a horror film, complete with filicide, sorcery, and satanic communion. But were these just moral panics, or distorted memories of something older? Some folklorists suggest that the devil may have been a misunderstood archetype, a symbolic guardian of wildness, inherited from pre-Christian nature gods like Cernunnos or Pan. The antlered god of the forest became horned and cloven in the hands of the church. Were the wolf pacts real? Or were they a tool to demonize knowledge of the wild and those who dared to live on the edges of civilization? Either way, the legend remains, a whisper that power waits for those willing to surrender their soul and howl. Chapter 6. Wolf Saints and Cursed Bloodlines. Werewolves in religious lore. Not all werewolves were damned. In the folds of religious history, especially within early Christianity and Celtic tradition, the figure of the wolf was sometimes not a monster, but a messenger. Take Saint Natalis, an Irish abbot who, according to legend, cursed a nobleman and his wife to become wolves for 7 years after they broke monastic law. But they were no mindless beasts. They retained their souls, and when the wife fell ill, the wolf-man sought a priest to perform last rites. The story was recorded by Gerald of Wales in the 12th century, who treated the event with eerie neutrality. It wasn't just folklore, it was ecclesiastical casework. Elsewhere in Armenia, the shapeshifter, cursed lineages of wolf people, were said to be the result of broken vows and divine punishment. Some bloodlines were believed to carry this curse across generations, dormant but always waiting for the wolf night, a night of spiritual weakness when the beast inside awakened. Then there's the tale of the Versipels, Roman-era soldiers who prayed to Diana or Hecate to survive in battle. They were said to don wolf skins in sacred rites, entering a trance that allowed them to fight like animals, and return with no memory of it. The church both feared and needed these stories. They were cautionary tales, but also affirmations. Even the beast, if truly penitent, could find redemption. And yet, some priests warned of the opposite, that a holy man who sinned too deeply might be turned, not by the devil, but by divine justice. These stories live on at the edges of sacred text and whispered tradition. The werewolf is not always the sinner. Sometimes it is the sin made flesh. Chapter 7. Lunar Code, the science behind the full moon. The full moon has long been blamed for strange behavior, madness, insomnia, violence, transformation. But is there science behind the folklore? In medical literature, the term lunacy is no accident. It derives from Luna, the Roman moon goddess, and reflects a centuries-old belief that moonlight affects the mind. For years, hospitals and law enforcement recorded higher rates of psychiatric admissions and crimes during full moons, a correlation both contested and quietly persistent. One explanation lies in circadian rhythms. Just as the moon tugs the ocean's tides, it may subtly influence the water in our bodies. Sleep studies have shown that some people experience reduced melatonin levels and sleep disruptions during full moons, even in blackout conditions. Could this subtle biochemical shift, magnified in the sensitive or unstable, unlock something primal? Then there's the gravitational theory. Though weak, lunar gravity could interact with the electromagnetic fields of Earth, or the human brain. Paranormal researchers have long speculated that heightened geomagnetic activity correlates with poltergeist reports, sleep paralysis, and other uncanny events. If wolves sense lunar cycles instinctively, might humans still carry an echo of the same? Some theories go further, claiming the moon itself acts as a kind of biological switch. In certain esoteric circles, it's believed that lunar light triggers ancestral genetic memory, awakening dormant animal impulses. They call it the lunar key, a frequency not yet measurable by modern science, but embedded in the DNA of those with the blood. Skeptics scoff. But every full moon, police departments quietly increase patrols. ERs brace for chaos, and somewhere in the woods, something stirs. Chapter 8. The Hidden Breed. Werewolves in Indigenous and Tribal Lore. Long before Europe feared werewolves, tribal societies across the globe had their own stories of skin changers, beings who could shift between human and animal form. But these weren't always viewed as curses. Often, they were sacred. In many indigenous North American traditions, the concept of shapeshifting is woven into the spiritual fabric of the world. Among the Navajo, tales of skinwalkers, witches who wear animal skins to transform, are whispered, not spoken of lightly. Unlike the protective wolf spirits revered in other traditions, the skinwalker is feared, a being who has broken taboos and walks the line between human and predator. They are the inverse of harmony, a mirror of what happens when balance is corrupted. Among the Cree and Algonquin, there are stories of wendigos, once human beings who became monstrous through insatiable hunger and isolation. While not wolves in appearance, some variants describe them growing fur, running on all fours, and hunting like beasts under moonlight. It is a warning against greed, cannibalism, and forgetting one's humanity. In Amazonian lore, the lobisomum is a wolf-man hybrid that stalks the rainforest during certain moon phases. Some say it's a punishment for incest or murder. Others claim it's hereditary, passed down through the bloodline, just waiting for the right lunar trigger. Siberian shamans, too, were said to walk between realms in wolf form, not cursed, but spiritually chosen. In Mongolian steppe legends, warrior spirits in wolf skins protected sacred lands. In Africa, where hyenas are said to hunt with a mix of spiritual magic and animal cunning. All these traditions suggest one thing: the wolf is not always the enemy. Sometimes it is what waits at the threshold, testing, guarding, watching. And sometimes it is us. Chapter 9. The Howl in the Wires. Werewolves in modern urban legend. The werewolf has survived the centuries, but it didn't stay in the woods. Today, urban legends speak of creatures stalking rural highways, prowling the edges of suburbs, and vanishing into storm drains. The setting may be modern, but the fear remains ancient. In the 1980s, newspapers in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, began reporting sightings of a bipedal wolf-like creature lurking near Bray Road. Witnesses described glowing eyes, powerful limbs, and the uncanny feeling that the thing wasn't just an animal, but aware. It became known as the Beast of Bray Road, and to this day, it still draws investigators, skeptics, and the brave. Then there's the story of the Michigan Dogman, a tall, canine-headed figure first reported in 1887 and said to reappear every decade. Eyewitnesses describe its howl as part scream, part mechanical distortion, as if it echoes through power lines, not lungs. In London, Ontario, police once responded to a series of reports about a hunched wolf-like figure near a parkway tunnel. Nothing was found, but traffic cameras picked up a brief distortion, shaped like a crouched biped. It was dismissed as weather interference. On Reddit, late-night posts hint at crawlers, pale, beast-like creatures with wolfish faces seen near cell phone towers or industrial areas. One commenter claimed, "It knew when I looked, I could feel it behind the wires." Modern werewolf sightings blur with conspiracy. Some say they're bioengineered soldiers gone rogue. Others claim electromagnetic fields awaken feral nodes in certain people. A few whisper about black-budget projects involving canid human hybrids used for tracking or crowd control. Whatever the explanation, the sightings persist. Not in fairy tales, but in dim surveillance footage, anonymous voicemail tips, and the hum of power lines just before the scream. Chapter 10. Lycanthropy Files. Classified experiments and government secrets. What if werewolves aren't mythical beasts, but engineered ones? Declassified documents, whistleblower accounts, and buried military research suggest a chilling possibility: that the government has not only studied lycanthropy, but may have weaponized it. Project Lycan, reportedly launched during the Cold War, was said to explore feral augmentation, using canine DNA to enhance soldier reflexes and resilience. Some files describe experiments with genetic splicing, adrenal overdrive, and targeted injections that produced heightened aggression, regenerative qualities, and preternatural sensory awareness. One note simply reads, Subject 7, extreme photosensitivity, dermal hair eruption, terminated. In 1976, a leaked Pentagon memo referenced canid/hominid hybridization trials in proximity to lunar cycles. It was dismissed as science fiction, but months later, rural military bases reported unspecified biological containment breaches. Black site insiders claim certain assets, unofficial, deniable, were designed to deploy in close-quarters combat zones. Dubbed howlers, these soldiers were rarely seen, only heard. Survivors described their attacks as like being hunted by silence until it screamed. In 2003, a now-erased video surfaced on a dark web forum showing what appeared to be a restrained humanoid covered in dark fur, growling as a researcher injected it with a glowing compound. The footage vanished within hours. The forum was seized. Why does the Defense Intelligence Agency list cryptid-based combat anomalies under its psychological threat protocols? Why do wolf sightings spike near certain decommissioned research facilities? Some suggest the government knows lycanthropy is real, not as a curse, but as a controlled mutation. And once you understand that, the stories, the myths, the warnings, they were never fiction. They were redacted truths. Chapter 11. The Genetics of the Beast. DNA, Bloodlines, and Activation. What if werewolves aren't made through magic or viral bites, but through blood? For centuries, stories have hinted that lycanthropy runs in families. Cursed bloodlines, generational afflictions, the mark of the wolf. But recent fringe genetic studies and cryptic medical reports suggest something even stranger. That some people might carry a latent genetic code, a dormant sequence that, under specific conditions, could trigger profound physical and neurological changes. In 2008, a team of researchers at an undisclosed European institute claimed to have isolated a segment of mitochondrial DNA from a subject who claimed multi-generational morphological episodes. The sequence, labeled HLYCX, showed unusual stability under stress and displayed unexpected reactivity to light-based stimuli. Publicly, it was dismissed. Privately, some whispered that the DNA sample had been seized and classified. There are historical records of entire families in Eastern Europe believed to shift under duress, described in local folklore as half-skin folk. Villagers avoided them during storms and full moons. Autopsy reports, rare and redacted, describe skeletal anomalies and high-density musculature inconsistent with typical human development. In modern times, fringe science forums have emerged where people describe wolf dreams, sudden shifts in night vision, and painful rashes that come and go with lunar cycles. Some believe stress or trauma can activate the dormant gene. Others point to environmental triggers, such as high EMF zones or hormonal peaks. Then there's the quiet story of a Siberian doctor who disappeared after publishing an encrypted paper titled Homo Lupus, Ancestral Recessives and Post-Dormant Predation Response. DNA is not just a code, it's a memory, and some memories are meant to remain buried. Chapter 12. Blood Moon Cults. Secret Societies and Ritual Lycanthropy. Beneath the flicker of blood moons and hidden symbols lies an unsettling theory that werewolves don't just happen, they're initiated. Across Europe, South America, and parts of Asia, strange patterns emerge. Remote monasteries that vanished without explanation, rural temples aligned with lunar cycles, and ruins marked by clawed figures with human eyes. A growing body of researchers believe that throughout history, small elite groups, lycanthropic cults, have preserved and practiced rituals of controlled transformation. Their goal? To awaken the beast within, in service of a higher order. In Romania, ruins known as the Red Chapel feature mosaics of men wrapped in wolf pelts kneeling before a hooded figure holding a moon-shaped blade. A 1910 explorer claimed the altar at its center was warm to the touch during full moons, and found a set of wolf-shaped ceremonial masks nearby. In Chile's Chiloé Island, stories persist of the brujo, sorcerers who transform into wolves through rites involving sacred stones and blood. Local myth insists they protect secrets buried in tunnels older than recorded history. Even in modern times, whispers speak of underground orders. The Silver Veil, the Red Maw, Crescent Order, said to meet in forests, abandoned churches, or hidden catacombs to continue these rites. Participants often vanish from public life. Some are said to return changed. Recovered texts describe these rituals: bathing in animal blood, invoking ancient names, and donning wolf hides passed down for generations. Some sources claim the skin itself remembers. Perhaps the werewolf is not a curse or a creature, but an initiation. A secret transformation carried out by those who believe that to rule in the dark, you must become it. Chapter 13. Werewolf Psychology. Dreams, desires, and the shadow self. The werewolf isn't only a creature of folklore or mutation. It's a mirror, one that reflects the darkest parts of ourselves. Carl Jung once wrote of the shadow self, the unconscious aspects of the psyche we repress or fear: violence, lust, rage, the primal instincts beneath the social mask. For many psychologists, the werewolf represents that hidden self, the part of us that howls when pushed too far, that surfaces in dreams and breaks rules we didn't know we'd written. Recurring dreams of wolves are among the most common cross-cultural archetypes. In Jungian therapy, they often represent fear of one's own instincts, or suppressed power waiting to emerge. The werewolf, then, becomes a metaphor for transformation, not into a monster, but into something more real, more honest. Serial killers like Peter Stump in the 1500s or more modern cases have claimed they felt possessed by animal impulses. Is that insanity? Or a mythic language used to describe loss of control? In fiction and film, werewolves are often portrayed as victims of duality, men who become beasts when emotions swell. It's not random. It's symbolic. The beast within that we all feel, but fear to confront. Some therapists even use lycanthropy metaphorically to explore trauma and rage. Patients describe blackout states, dreams of teeth and blood, or a desire to escape into the wild. These aren't disorders, they're messages from the deeper self. The werewolf is not only what we fear to become, but what we long to set free. Chapter 14. The Silver Vein. Anti-werewolf tech, tactics, and modern defense. If the werewolf is real, or even partially real, what defenses exist against it? Legends across cultures agree on one thing: silver. But why? Some researchers believe silver's anti-werewolf reputation began with its sacred status in ancient cultures. Associated with the moon and purity, silver was used in ritual, medicine, and exorcism. In alchemy, it symbolized spiritual clarity. But in practical terms, silver is also antimicrobial. It kills bacteria and disrupts cellular regeneration, which could explain its metaphorical role in halting transformation. Modern fringe weaponry circles claim that certain agencies, public or otherwise, still experiment with silver-based ammunition. A leaked 1992 document from a NATO Special Ops unit mentions anti-ferrule rounds with a silver tungsten core, deployed during containment operations in Eastern Europe. Thermal imaging systems have reportedly been enhanced to detect sudden drops in ambient body temperature, one supposed side effect of transformation. Others rely on high-frequency sound bursts to disable heightened canine hearing. In urban legend, secretive task forces like the Pale Division or Unit Moondagger are said to monitor remote regions and conduct hunts during specific lunar alignments. Some rumors go further, claiming genetically enhanced humans are trained to counter werewolves with their own controlled hybridization. Defensive lore also includes protective symbols, wolf's bane sigils, lunar talismans, iron stakes, and perimeter wards carved into stone. Even in the age of satellites, some ancient defenses remain. If the werewolf exists in flesh, in spirit, or in mutation, it makes sense the world would fight back. And somewhere in a bunker, perhaps behind a reinforced vault door, is a silver-lined locker, ready for the next full moon. Chapter 15. The Last Transformation. Werewolves in the Future of Humanity. What does the werewolf become? In the world to come, in an age of genetic editing, transhumanism, and neural augmentation, the ancient fear of transformation has taken on new meaning. We now choose to alter ourselves, physically, cognitively, spiritually. What was once curse or myth is becoming design. Scientists manipulate genes with CRISPR. Military black labs pursue super soldiers. Even Silicon Valley dreams of uploading the mind to machine. And yet, in our pursuit of perfection, the old archetypes emerge. The beast, the shadow, the primal self we still don't understand. In future centuries, will the werewolf return, not as a cursed soul, but as a chosen form? An elite caste of biologically enhanced hunters, senses sharpened, empathy dialed down, unleashed during social collapse or environmental warfare. What if AI simulations of consciousness accidentally awaken primal code within the mind? Neural circuits shaped by 100,000 years of survival? Will the wolf stir inside our digital selves? In another timeline, werewolves were cautionary tales, warnings about losing our humanity. In this one, they might become blueprints, guides toward something both more and less than human. Maybe the final form of the werewolf isn't one of fur and fang, but of recognition. That beneath every polished surface, under every algorithm, we still carry the hunger, the wild, the shadow. And when the next blood moon rises, whether over forests or server farms, someone will feel the change, not in the body, but in the soul, and they will howl.